Welcome back to the show, everybody. Check out these headlines we have for you today. We got Brian Brooks talking about the weaponization of the dollar and U.S. dollar dominance and how it's approaching a cliff rapidly. You're going to hear from him. Jim Rickards talking about BRICS and their own telecommunications system, is it? And how about this? The recent news of the granted request for the SEC. We're going to get into it and break it down, and we're going to hear from Stuart Alderoty himself, Meta lawman James Murphy, and you're not going to believe it. The words mean something. Currency means something. Oh, we got that and so much more. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow us on Twitter and YouTube for exclusive content. Right now, the current market cap is $1.1 trillion. The market is off by 6.1%. You are seeing that correct, I'm afraid. Bitcoin now $26,300, off by 7.6 in the 24-hour, 10.4 on the 7-day, 1680 in change for Ethereum, off by 6.1 in the 24-hour and 9.1 on the 7-day. Tether market cap's 82.7 billion plus. XRP is now 50 cents. We're off by 13.7% in the 24 hours and off by almost 20% at minus 19.9 on the 7-day. Whoa, what the hell's going on out here? I still got my XRP. Did you sell it? Somebody's selling. Well, you know what? Here's what we're going to have today. We're going to get some clarity on what's going on legally in the market, because linked to today at 12 o'clock, 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern time, is going to have none other than the field general himself for crypto and XRP holders. It's the SEC versus Ripple and an update with John Deaton, ladies and gentlemen. Do not miss that today. Click that for the link and you will join in as well. I'm going to jump in. But we'll just start here. We're going to go from the geopolitical stage right on through to what's happening in the most recent news with the SEC itself. So let's start here. One, this is a presidential candidate, and I want you to hear what he has to say about the world's reserve currency and U.S. dollar dominance. Take a quick listen.
In fact, it's waning in terms of our currency. And I'm not just talking about the value of our currency. I'm talking about our currency being used throughout the world.
You want it to remain. You want the dollar to remain the world's reserve currency.
Well, I think it's bigger than losing any war. I think if it doesn't, look, we are already reverting to third world status in many ways. You look at our airports, you look at our terminals, you look at our filthy roads and broken roads and everything else. We're like a third world country. We have something that's very powerful, and that's our dollar all over. But you take a look at what's happening to it now with other countries not using it. And you know China wants to replace it with the yuan. And it was unthinkable with us. Unthinkable. Would never have happened. Now people are thinking about it.
And not only are they thinking about it, you're going to hear Brian Brooks in a second talk about it in a way that you haven't heard in a while or ever. Meanwhile, in China, Evergrande, which is an enormous entity in China, Chinese property giant, has now filed for bankruptcy. We have been watching this on this channel very closely. Yesterday was the moment. This is China's Bear Stearns moment. It has arrived, ladies and gentlemen. And let us not forget that this world is connected to the hip. The dominoes are beginning to fall on the global economic stage, while BRICS is going to happen just 4 days from now, is the countdown. The BRICS summit, where we're looking for announcements for other countries to join that bloc, as Saudi Arabia being one of the big ones that we're looking for, because we know the de-dollarization begins with oil and gas. And if we see Saudi Arabia, which has shown the intent, has formally applied to join BRICS, if they do that, it will basically say that this is the moment that we are no longer honoring the petrodollar agreement. You can't serve two masters. They're going to have to pick a side and go. That's the way this works. Speaking of picking a side here, This is Jim Rickards, who's talking about what has been done by the BRICS coalition and what they're actually working on. We know that they've said that they want to release their own reserve currency, but here's what they've been doing in the process is to create their own telecommunications payment rails so no one could ever cut them off the way the U.S. does through sanctions and SWIFT. Take a quick listen here.
And I read in the piece you sent me about a submarine telecommunications cable that they're setting up. I mean, do you have any more detail on that you could share? I mean, that's just
I actually know a lot about it. But they've built their own fiber optic submarine cable. They call it BRICS cable. Because the U.S. is very good at tapping these things. I actually did a job once where I had to figure out all the global telecommunications in the world through cable. It was a long story, but there's something called SECvsRipple-Me, which is C is Southeast Asia, we is Western Europe, and Me is Middle East. So SECvsRipple-Me is basically the cable system that connects Asia and London, and then there's a separate one that goes from London to the United States. I know where it goes. I can't say, but it has a nice home in the United States. And I know where the Middle East choke points are. And again, I won't say those. But the point is, if you cut that cable at one of those choke points, or you go off in somewhere in the Mediterranean and cut that cable, you shut down internet communications between Europe and Asia, like in a heartbeat, and by extension, the United States. More sophisticated version is to tap them. Easier said than done. Every now and then the internet will go out and go, oh, yeah, there's some problem with the internet. It's like, well, no, you're tapping the cable and it'll be back up in a couple of hours. So the BRICS know this, and they are laying their own cables. Now, easier said than done in terms of protecting them, but they want to have encrypted, secure communications and payment channels. Again, they've been screwed over by the West. We kicked them out of SWIFT. We kicked them out of, other interbank payment systems. They ended Visa. Visa's no good in Russia. Mastercard's no good in Russia. The banks can't transact in dollars, certainly. Okay, this is the 12th largest economy in the world. It's the largest landmass in the world. It's the largest nuclear arsenal in the world, et cetera. But you're saying you can't be part of the international payment system. Well, there's a simple solution to that, which is build your own. Yeah. And
that's exactly what BRICS has done and what they're doing. And that's what makes this summit in South Africa just 4 days from now so critical to pay close attention to for any announcement of new countries joining BRICS. And we know that there are a lot that have applied. So head on a swivel, ladies and gentlemen. The geopolitical events are crossing over into the digital asset realm. There's no question about it. And then here we see Brian Brooks going further, talking about the weaponization of the dollar here. I got two clips from him that are fire. You need to hear it. Governments around the world are fighting U.S. dollar dominance. And it says here, governments around the world are trying to decouple from the dollar, but citizens of these countries don't want that. Take a listen.
Yeah, that is exactly right. And I think the world that we live in today, you had mentioned the weaponization of the dollar. Governments around the world are fighting dollar dominance. And we've all grown up in a dollar-denominated world since World War II. We have a lot of luxuries and benefits that come from that fact. Lower borrowing costs, cheaper goods and services for people who hold dollars, and things that Americans enjoy every single day. Governments around the world, for political reasons, are trying to decouple from the dollar. The point about stablecoins is the citizens of some of these other countries don't want to decouple from the dollar, because for all of our problems, the dollar remains one of the most stable and most widely accepted currencies. So the concept is stablecoins are a way of allowing citizens of countries like Russia, India, Brazil, those kinds of places, to hold their assets in dollars and to maintain demand for our currency at a time when other governments don't want to do that.
And listen, I think he makes a great valid point here, and one that really doesn't get touched on. He's talking about stable coins, and citizens of other countries want to hold the dollar that way. He didn't say CBDC. He said stable coins. This continues to really point my speculation towards the USDC coin becoming the retail digital dollar for the United States, and having that 3 degrees of separation between a central bank and the government itself controlling our money, which should be private. That means we're missing that major step, that anointing that should happen, where basically an entity like Circle is adopted and then prudentially regulated, so it is made sure that those things are backed the way that they should be and held to prudential regulation, but again, still remain a private sector company. And I think that's important, because as long as that happens and it's held to the rights of the Constitution, then we all should have the privacy rights to our digital dollars, albeit stable coins. Now, here's another great point that's being made here by Brian Brooks, where he talks about 20 years ago, the US dollar was at 73% of all other reserve currencies. We had a big buffer. Now we're just north of 58%. Now, he says somewhere between 58 and 50%, we will go over a rapid cliff if we're not careful, and we are getting awfully close to an edge we should be worried about. This is an enormous comment coming from the former Office of Comptroller of Currency here. Take a listen.
But cryptocurrency blockchains are what enable stablecoins to be secure and to transact instantly on the internet. That's the first difference that's really important here. But the second and more important point, I think, is you're right. When the debt downgrade happened just a couple of weeks ago, not very much happened in markets, which is why a lot of people might think, who cares? This is not that big of a deal. And my answer to that is, 20 years ago, when the dollar was 73% of all reserve currencies, we had a big buffer. We were very clearly the asset of choice globally for any major transaction. We're now at just north of 58%. Somewhere between 58% and 50% is a rapid cliff that we will go over if we're not very careful. And so, yes, at 58%, we're still a solid enough currency to absorb those kinds of shocks. And, with the next fiscal cliff, depending on where it is, maybe we'll have enough buffer to survive that too. But we're getting awfully close to an edge that we should be worried about. And so anything that makes dollars more attractive, that increases the demand for dollars, is ultimately good for the role of the dollar in the system.
And there you have it, another endorsement of regulated stable coins that could back and support the adoption of the use of the dollar through digital internet money, which would be a digital US dollar. It's pretty remarkable. Now, this is a reminder right here that there is a partnership announced here and a partner program going on between Mastercard and CBDC partner program, including Ripple, baby. Yeah, this is good stuff. Now, it's not a huge announcement here. Well, it's a huge announcement, but there's not a lot of details, I should say. Payments giant Mastercard has created a forum where crypto industry players can discuss and collaborate on central bank digital currencies, injecting its influential voice into CBDC conversation as nations around the world consider whether to digitize their money. Now, here it is. This is Ripple, baby, right here. This is what you see with Mastercard. This is happening. This is further sign that there is a huge paradigm shift underway, which makes the Ripple case so very, very important. Because as of now, and you're about to hear an attorney tell it to you, XRP is the only digital asset with legal clarity at this time. Okay? And that's a very, very important point. So let's take a listen to this right here. This is Eleanor Tarrant, because it was some confusion out here about that SEC, did they get granted the interlocutory appeal? No. They got granted the ability to request permission for asking to file a interlocutory appeal. How about that? And rightfully so. She says, a request to request law. Laugh out loud. Absolutely. It was confusing to me, as so many others, as I know it was to Eleanor, but we got it right now. We all are on the same page now. And I want you to hear what's being said here, because we know, and we're going to hear from Stuart Alderoty as well, by the way. This is a great clip from Meta Lawman. By the way, show some love, show some support, tag Twitter support, X support. Meta Lawman has been hacked. Let's help him get his account back. He is such a crucial part of our community. We absolutely need his insights. Take a listen to this clip here.
Yeah, the development just moments ago is that Judge Torres is going to permit the SEC to file briefs. It's important for people to understand that she has not permitted an interlocutory appeal, but rather this is process. She's allowing the SEC to make their argument in a formal brief of why they think interlocutory appeal is appropriate. I thought Ripple and Garlinghouse and Larson came back very strong yesterday with their own letters explaining why an interlocutory appeal would not be appropriate. Two things, coming out of that were, number one, Ripple said, oh, and by the way, in the unlikely event interlocutory appeal is allowed, we are going to cross appeal on the institutional sales and get that reversed by the Second Circuit. And then I thought Garlinghouse and Larson did a heck of a nice job of saying no stay of the case pending an appeal. If there's an interlocutory appeal, we want our day in court. We are approaching a 3-year anniversary of our reputations being dragged through the mud by the SEC, and we have a right to our day in court. No more delays. We're ready to go. Let's go. I thought it was very powerful.
It really was. There's no doubt about it. And what a great point he's making here. And then here we have Stuart Alderoty saying he's asked by Ash Bennington, who's fantastic over at Real Vision. And he says, in effect, does this become a kind of de facto standard for the crypto industry? Stewart responds here. He says, Judge Torres' ruling will provide precedent and comfort to other judges who are grappling with this industry. That is the law of the land. Oh my, this has been a great conversation we've been having inside the DPMG, by the way, as well. And it felt good to have Stuart chime in on this, not knowing that we were having a conversation about how this is being interpreted throughout the rest of the industry and through the legal community. Take a listen.
Question about this sort of period before the interlocutory appeal request is decided. Does this mean, in effect, that this is a kind of case law established in the Southern District as just a general proposition for those of us who aren't lawyers? You have a ruling from Judge Torres in place while the interlocutory request for appeal is pending. In effect, does this become a kind of de facto standard for the crypto industry?
Yeah, I think this is the clarity that Judge Torres's ruling has brought, I think, will provide precedent and comfort to other judges who are grappling with this industry. And throughout all of this discussion of whether or not there's going to be an interlocutory appeal, and even if there is going to be an interlocutory appeal, the core findings of Judge Torres that XRP is not in and of itself a security, that the trading of XRP on secondary market exchanges are not securities, that other distributions of XRP are not securities. That is the law of the land. That doesn't get paused. It's not on hold. That is the law. And I think other judges and other courts are going to draw great comfort from her rationale.
There you have it. I mean, that was powerful right there. And then we have this quick clip right here. Well, I tell you, I just love hearing it.
With regard to Judge Torres's ruling for institutional buyers, is it Ripple's view, or what is Ripple's view, I should just ask, about what the implications are in terms of the initial manner of sale to those institutional buyers? What's the impact of that, if any, in your view, on whether or not XRP will continue to be seen by SEC as a token in the future, as a security in the future?
Yeah, well, I don't think the SEC simply cannot view XRP in and of itself as a security in the future. This court drew a bright line on that question. We won, the SEC lost. XRP is not a security.
There you have that right there. Now, we love hearing that, but here's one more here. This is, again, if you haven't checked out the video from this morning with James Murphy, Meta Lawman, Again, give him a retweet on Twitter. Let's get him his page back. He was hacked. But let me tell you something. This guy tells it and breaks it down. He's well aware of FinCEN and how they made the ruling that XRP was a virtual currency, and then the SEC came back. And well, we talk about that, and he says the word currency means something when we're talking about XRP. And no, Bitcoin does not have legal clarity. Take a listen here.
When he was saying stuff that was accurate, you know, he had credibility. The guy had been around for a long time. He had led the CFTC, you know, and a long career at Goldman Sachs. And now, you know, something's gone terribly wrong. And he's made this wild pivot to contradicting everything he'd said before. But long answer to no, there isn't any legal opinion saying Bitcoin is in the clear. It's just everybody assumes it is.
And thank you for that. And I want to be clear to people that I believe that cryptos, you know, like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and certainly XRP, in and of themselves are not securities. I just know that there's no legal decision. So I just want to be, you know, clear about that. And look, I say this on my channel. I'm going to say it again today for people who watch this. You know, the reason I bring it up is because as an XRP holder, I watched 8 years go by of the SEC do nothing when FinCEN, a government agency, said that XRP was a virtual currency, and 8 years went by before the regulator actually took action against Ripple for XRP, saying, no, we got it wrong. It is a security. And in that interim, they approved a partnership with MoneyGram and allowed that to happen and actually blessed that to happen, knowing XRP was going to be used. You know, I can't help but feel like these things were like, that's a whole nother conversation in a video, and I know a lot of lawyers don't like to speculate. So let's go to...
Well, Brad, just real quickly.
Yes.
The word currency means something.
Damn right.
You know, it means it can be used. It means a number of things, but it means it says it can be used as a means of exchange for some other value, to buy a product or service. It cannot be a security if that's true, because, you know, the security's got to be registered, you know, and you can't go buy coffee with a security. These two things are inherently inconsistent. And so when the experts in the United States say it's a currency, that does mean it is not a security. And so it was not irrational for anyone involved at Ripple to say, oh, great, confirms what we already knew. This is not a security. It's a currency.
You know,
when he was...
I have to say now, when you hear that and he lays it down like that, I can't help but be left with the feeling that all we're waiting for is for the industry, the legal system, to really figure out exactly what James Murphy has told us here is exactly that. XRP is not a security, it's a currency, and I can't wait to see when it dawns on the rest of the world exactly that and what it looks like when it does. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. It's just my digital perspectives. I'll catch all of you on the next one.